Welcome back to the Stocks Update. Let's dive into the major stock market catalysts you need to keep an eye on for the upcoming week. There's quite a bit happening on both the macroeconomic front and within individual sectors, and as always, we'll finish with an in-depth look at Lucid Motors and what to expect moving forward. Starting off on Tuesday, we're expecting the release of new money supply data. Ordinarily, this wouldn't draw much attention, but in today's market environment, every small ripple in liquidity trends has the potential to become a wave. With growing concerns about inflation, interest rates, and credit availability, institutions and big-time investors will be paying close attention to whether the money supply is expanding or contracting. The implications go deep. An expanding money supply could suggest a loosening stance, while a contraction could indicate tightening ahead. Throughout the week, we'll also hear from a large number of Federal Reserve speakers, and if you've been tracking the markets lately, you'll know just how sensitive investors have become to Fed rhetoric. One hawkish or dovish comment can easily swing sentiment in either direction. This flood of Fed talk alone could introduce substantial volatility, even if no policy changes are formally announced. To wrap the week up, we're expecting the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index on Friday. While often overlooked in calmer times, this sentiment data has become a powerful market-moving report. Take note, each of the past 5 releases of this index have triggered noticeable pullbacks in the major indices. That trend alone makes this week's report worth watching very closely. Now let's pivot to the ever-evolving tariff situation between the U.S. and China, which remains a major wildcard for the markets. There seems to be a growing sense of optimism around the possibility of a trade deal between the two global powers. While nothing has been officially confirmed, several signs have sparked speculation that negotiations are progressing behind closed doors. One key development from last week was the noticeable decline in U.S. bond yields, a sign that China may have stopped its aggressive selling of U.S. treasuries. If true, that could mean both sides are cooling off, making room for constructive dialogue. Previously, many believed China's dumping of treasuries was a strategic move to indirectly pressure the U.S. economy. So, if that's easing up, it could hint at improving relations, and the markets would definitely cheer that on. If a deal is reached, or even hinted at in the coming days, expect a strong bullish reaction across major indices. But on the flip side, if tensions escalate or the U.S. imposes more tariffs, we could see panic selling return. So this topic is a must-watch. We're still deep in earnings season, and this week, the spotlight shines on Tesla, which reports its results Tuesday after the market closes. Tesla's earnings are always closely watched, but they take on additional weight for the EV sector as a whole. Even though Tesla has had its own unique set of challenges recently, its earnings report can still influence other EV stocks, including Lucid. Historically, if Tesla disappoints, it doesn't always pull the rest of the EV space down. In fact, sometimes, weaker Tesla results can actually benefit rivals like Lucid, Rivian, or Fisker, depending on investor sentiment. Apart from Tesla, several large-cap companies will also be reporting this week, offering updated forward guidance which can set the tone for the broader market. So far, this earnings season hasn't been as negative as some feared. While many companies are cautious and are flagging tariffs and inflation as concerns, we're not yet seeing large-scale forecast cuts. That resilience has helped keep the market relatively stable. Turning now to Lucid Motors, let's take a closer look at the latest developments surrounding the company, especially as investors try to gauge whether the stock can regain momentum. One notable update came from Lucid Oasis, a social media community of Lucid enthusiasts. They shared a LinkedIn post by Mark, which highlighted a batch of recent reviews of the upcoming Lucid Gravity SUV. The feedback appears largely positive, suggesting strong consumer interest in the new model. While that's great on the surface, it's worth noting that similar enthusiasm surrounded the original Lucid Air when it launched. Despite glowing reviews, that buzz didn't translate into sustained gains for the stock. So while we shouldn't ignore the positive sentiment, it's wise to remain cautiously optimistic. Interestingly, Lucid seems to be soft launching a Dream edition of the Gravity. It's not advertised prominently on the website, but it is available if you reach out directly, possibly as a strategy to create a sense of exclusivity or limited supply. Another subtle but important development: Lucid is holding its current pricing steady through the end of May, despite growing concerns around tariffs. This strategy mirrors what Ford did recently, although Ford has now backtracked and said it will have to raise prices if tariffs are enforced long-term. Expect Lucid to make a similar move if the geopolitical winds shift. Now, let's talk about short interest and the positioning of traders around Lucid. Currently, approximately 23.13% of Lucid's free float is being shorted, translating to about 281 million shares. That's a huge number and shows that the bearish crowd hasn't left the building, though short interest did dip from around 25% recently. This pullback in short positioning may indicate that bears are waiting for confirmation of the next big move, whether it's positive developments like a tariff resolution or negative news like a missed earnings forecast. Looking at option market data, the stock closed last week above the $2 strike price, which resulted in about $17K in the money call options. This could force market makers to hedge by buying more shares, which may lead to a price bump early in the week. As of now, there aren't any major option walls that would point to massive manipulation attempts. For context, large open interest at certain strike prices can act like magnets, pulling the stock toward them as options expire. This week, however, we're only seeing about $6K open interest at the $2 strike and around $9K at $3. That's not enough to expect aggressive suppression tactics by shorts. Zooming in on Lucid's price action, the stock ended the previous week trading around $2.38, placing it between the pivot point $2.33 and the first resistance level R1 at $2.55. The stock is hovering below its 50-day moving average $2.48, and it's struggling to break through that barrier. It's attempted to move above this average for 5 straight days, but continues to get rejected. If it can successfully close above the 50-day average and hold that level for at least 2 consecutive days, that could open the door to a breakout, possibly triggering a 30% upside swing. The 100-day moving average currently sits at $2.60, which would act as the next significant resistance level after a breakout. In terms of fundamentals, we haven't seen any new analyst upgrades or downgrades, nor has Lucid updated its revenue or earnings per share forecast. However, as we inch closer to Lucid's next earnings date, keep an eye out for analyst revisions. They tend to sneak in just before earnings and can influence short-term price action. One final note to consider: the money supply data on Tuesday could set the tone for the rest of the week. If the Fed is indeed increasing liquidity, that could signal concerns about economic slowdown or upcoming stimulus measures, both of which could benefit growth stocks like Lucid in the short term. Taking everything into account, including technical levels, macro data, and the option chain, a reasonable trading range for Lucid this week might be between $2.55 and $2.69, provided we don't get hit with any major negative surprises. If optimism around tariffs or EV earnings lifts sentiment, we could see Lucid test that $2.60 mark. If broader market concerns dominate, then $2.33 will act as the crucial support to hold. The next several days could be pivotal for Lucid and the market as a whole. Keep your eyes on Tuesday's money supply report, Friday's consumer sentiment index, updates on U.S. China tariffs, Tesla's earnings, Lucid's battle to reclaim its moving averages. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you bullish on Lucid this week, or are you staying cautious? If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue to bring you in-depth market analysis. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.